Hello everyone. Thank you ever so much for joining this webinar today. This is the first of our webinars for 2026 from us here at Verto, so Happy New Year to you all. I hope all your festive seasons were wonderful. I hope that you all still have that New Year gusto and are sticking to those grand life plans that we all seem to dive headfirst into at this time of year. So for those who have previously attended one of our webinars, thank you so much for joining us here again today. We love to see returning visitors, and to that end, we are going to be making it even easier for you to attend more of our monthly sessions moving forward, as we are starting to work on getting the webinar topics out to you even earlier by publishing 3 months in advance, and you can find those on our webinar and events page on the Verto website, which is vertocloud.co.uk. So we're working towards that. We're not there right now, but it's all in the work. So please do keep an eye on that page for those updates that will be coming very soon. For the time being and moving forward, one of the best places to see what's coming up for us and any of our sessions and webinars is on our LinkedIn company page. So we would urge you all to go and have a search for Verto there, and do give us a follow on that platform. That would be great. Also, we have an email address, so you can contact us anytime if you'd like to suggest a topic or give us some feedback, or even if you'd like to join us and be a guest presenter. So you can reach out to us anytime at marketing@vertocloud.co.uk. And yeah, we welcome any suggestions at all. Right, finally, before moving into the webinar itself, I just wanted to remind you all today that the session is being recorded and it will be added to the website in the coming days, again on the webinar and events page on our website. We will also be sending today's slides through to those watching, but that's only if you've used your company address to sign up. I'm really sorry, but we're not able to send out to personal email addresses such as Hotmail and Gmail accounts. So if you have signed up using a personal email address today, don't worry, just simply email me at marketing@vertocloud.co.uk with your work email address, and I will add you to the recipient list to receive that follow-up email with the slides after today's webinar. Okay, now I'd like to begin with today's topic, which is 2026 trends we are predicting will be key focuses for anyone in the program and portfolio delivery space, change management and transformation sectors. I'm delighted to be joined by my colleague and Chief Client Officer, Simon Hall, who has a direct line to all of our wonderful clients and a wealth of knowledge within our delivery and transformation sector. So is the best person I know to speak of these trends today. Now, before we join Simon, just to talk you through today's agenda, I'm going to give you a bit of a brief introduction to Simon. Some of you may already know him. Certainly if you are a client or if you have listened to one of our P3M Playbook podcast episodes or been to one of our previous webinars. He's always happy to lend me a hand, lend me his expertise for these sessions, and I'm always very, very grateful to him. Next up, Simon is going to lead into why it is you should be listening to us today. He's going to talk you through the work that we do alongside our clients and how we are so well informed about what this year is going to look like for them, and therefore what we can help you start thinking about for the year ahead to stay ahead. He'll be then delving straight into the trends for delivery teams and PMOs that can help you save a bunch of time and effort by not having to work out what they are yourself. And then finally, we will end with a Q&A, so a chance for you to ask us some questions. The Q&A function is open, so do start popping in your questions. And as always, we will endeavour to answer as many as we can in today's sessions. So before I welcome him onto the screen, I want to introduce him here properly. Simon has over 25 years of experience in software deployment, beginning in pharmaceuticals, then in children's services, before transitioning into project and program management. He joined Verto way back in 2011, so years ago, and he leads the teams responsible for client success, client experience, client delivery, and support. So he is very well versed in the topics for today. So on that note, I want to pass over to you, Simon.
All right. Thank you very much. Hello, everybody. Thanks for the big introduction, making me feel old, but that's fine. Age and experience.
You can never get that right, can you?
No, it's not the years, it's the mileage, as Indiana Jones said, and I'm sticking to that. So we'll go with that. Right. So as Laura said, we're going to talk about the trends that we're seeing via our customer group, what we're focusing on this year to help support them. This goes through all of the work we did with them last year and the year before, what they're asking us for, what our clients are doing, and what we're seeing essentially across the board. So before we get into those specific items, we'll just talk a bit about, for those that are new to us, what Verto is, why it exists in the first place, how we started it, and how it's evolved since then. So just a little bit of background to all of this before we get into the trends. So what Verto is, as it says on the screen, Program and Portfolio Management Simplified. It is an application, a web-based application that we've put together to essentially help teams manage and track all of the work that they're doing, how much they're spending, what results they're getting, all the benefits, all that kind of stuff. So it's simplifying things because it's taking what's currently done often on lots of disparate spreadsheets and Word docs and PowerPoint templates and all sorts of different areas. It centralizes it and allows you to do some really good processes, standardization and all that kind of stuff, and good reporting out the other end. So that's what Verto is in a nutshell. But we're not here just to talk about Verto. We're just talking about more conceptual stuff today. Why it came out in the first place is kind of an interesting thing, and it's why we're still doing what we're doing today. So essentially, it was born out of working with a UK council who were really struggling to track the work that they were doing. We had an existing relationship with them because of an old business, and they said, look, we're being tasked to do all the same work and deliver all the same services, but we just have to save millions of pounds. So how are we going to do that? How do we even know what we're spending? How do we even know what everything's working? So the design early on, and it still stands right today, is centralize everything, work in a sort of standard way, and then you start to be able to see what you're spending money on, which projects are working, which ones aren't, where you might need to take remedial action, all that kind of stuff. So and it saves time when you get there, because instead of trying to cobble together all of this data from disparate systems, it's at a touch of a button. So we've always been about enabling people to make better data-driven decisions and pull all that together. So that's why it exists in the first place. And yeah, this common public sector problem, it exists for everybody, and it's only got worse over the years. Budgets are slashed, people are slashed, but everything still has to keep running. So how do we get there? So I think it's about being really savvy with the money you've got to spend, making sure it has the biggest bang for your buck, as the Americans like to say, and just figuring out where waste can be cut, but also where we can make the most value and use people the best. So that's sort of where it comes from. And the evolution over those many years that I've been here, I'm not going to remind you how many, is essentially flexibilizing it, which isn't a word, but it's one that we use internally. You make it as flexible as you can to support the different needs of the client. So when we first put Verto out, it was quite rigid. You had 3 stages. You ran your projects, business case, mandate, and live project, and that was that. But now we're in a world where you can have as many stages as you want, run it through different teams, as many levels of hierarchy as you want, as many types of strategic objectives loaded in, governance reporting, all that stuff's in there. And generally we tailor this for our clients. And in terms of how we build it and put it together, it says they're built with and for our clients. They are constantly driving. And if any of the clients are on today, you'll know that our relationship is very much, okay, that's great. It would be good if it could also do this. And can you build this in? And can we have that? And can we have that? So they're the ideas that make the system what it is, because we're not working at the coalface. We're trying to provide the tool that helps you guys, but we need to hear from you in terms of what's being put together. So that's kind of how we've got all the content for the webinar today. Essentially, we listen to the clients, they're asking us stuff, and we're seeing what they're trending towards. So we need to stay a little bit ahead of that in terms of what we're delivering from a development point of view, but also, do what the clients are asking at the same time. So that's kind of how we've got there. So that kind of sets the tone for what we're just about to see. So if we move forward and we'll start going through it. So these are the 5 trends that we've seen over the last year, and that are going into 2026 that we're focusing on as a business. And I'm going to speak to each one in a bit more detail. So a focus on resourcing, absolutely number one. The builds are going back into a more complex place than where they have been in recent years. There's more focus than ever on prioritization of projects. I guess that makes sense with limited budgets. Change management has become a bigger piece than ever. And then, reporting complexities never gone away, never will go away. It's a whole part of doing any of this. You're gathering data, what do you do with that data? So they're the 5 that we're going to go through. So if we just step through and we'll start with resourcing. So we can see from there that, the headlines, I'm not just going to read the slides out, by the way. These slides we can send out afterwards and you've got them, but I'll talk about the headlines and other bits in there. So I guess the biggest headline for resourcing is from nice to have to critical capability. So all the time I've been here, every time we've done any kind of tender process or a sales demo, we've always been asked about resourcing. It's always been in people's minds. So we need to be tracking who's doing what and all of that sort of stuff. So I'll just start just quickly with what do we mean by resourcing? So in essence, it's who have we got? How much time have they got? What skills have they got? And what are they currently doing? So if we are planning projects, we can say, I've got the capability to do that, or I don't have the capability, therefore I need to either buy it in or train people and make sure we've got the right people available at the right times. So that's kind of what we mean by resourcing. Everyone's always known that's important, but what has happened up until a couple of years ago is we've had a resourcing solution, we've demoed it, people have gone, that's great. When we go to implement the tool, we're like, okay, are we implementing resourcing? And the answer is generally, yeah, not now. We'll come to it. It's on the back burner. We'll get around to it, and then never get around to it. And it's an interesting one. It was always scoring quite heavily on tenders, but no one ever implemented it. But as of last year, particularly, it's forefront of everyone's minds, and it's needed on day one. It's not a phase 2 part of the implementation. It's we need to hit the ground running with this. We need to know exactly who we've got, what skills they've got, and make that run. And that has been a different change. And as such, we've gone from spending, a bit of time on developing resourcing to lots and lots of time. There's been plenty of new stuff putting in, and there's even more coming in this year as well. So it's just, we expect that most clients actually joining Verto and starting to work with us will want that out of the box, essentially.
Simon, is it linked to timesheets?
It is and it isn't. It doesn't have to be, is the short answer there. What we have seen, particularly in central gov and in public sector, is timesheeting is seen as a stress that they don't want to put on the clients, not the clients, on their users, I should say. Yeah. So there is this balance to be struck between I need to know what people are doing in order to cost my project properly, and also how much time things have been taken. But I don't want it to be seen as I need to see what you're doing every minute of every day, because that's seen as like a mental health challenge, and it's not working particularly well. But that does throw up a challenge for us, because we get told, well, I need to know how long everyone's spent on stuff, but I'm not going to ask them how long they've spent on stuff.
Yeah. It's
so that does give us a challenge.
You need it to be an enabler, not an oppression.
Yeah. And a lot of that comes down to, again, the change management. So why are we asking for that? How much are we asking for that? It's not tracking every minute of your day. We know how valuable you are. We know you're spending your time well. But we do need to get some data together for, we costed a project based on a certain amount of delivery. Did we go over? Did we go under? How can we learn from the costings we've done in the past and make that better for future projects? It's a thought in there. So I would say resourcing, it goes hand in hand with timesheets, but you don't have to use timesheets to do resourcing. So I'd perhaps think about resourcing as what you're going to do. So have we got the right people lined up at the right times with the right skills? And timesheets is a bit more, what did we do? How long did we spend? And that kind of thing. So I guess the other thing to say is, if you're thinking, well, we can't do timesheets in our organization, that doesn't stop you doing resourcing. You can still plan that. So I think that's quite important. So I think that's a key thing that's coming forward. And what we're seeing now is, I guess, starting small is a good way to do it, instead of going big bang and going, right, we haven't done it now, but we're going to make sure we know what everyone's doing across everything. That's quite a big jump. So what we're seeing out in the field is people starting with one department or a group of projects and going, well, let's prove it with these, show the benefit, see what help it can give us, and then push it out a little bit wider. So we're definitely seeing that in terms of resourcing it and pushing that stuff through. So, and the skills planning, it's a whole different thing. But I think it's really important. It's, we need someone that can do the specific work we need. And we can also look down the road. You can plan as far ahead as you want to. So if you've got projects starting in November and there's a core group of skills that you just don't have enough people for, you can plan in advance to get there rather than getting there and thinking, oh, hang on, we've only got one person and with the technical capability to run this, and 3 projects need that person on the same day. We can avoid that way in advance and figure that stuff out. And if you are buying in consultancy skills, how do you transition those skills back to your business and that kind of thing? So resourcing in one sense is quite simple in the sense of, well, who's around for what, but in another sense needs a lot of thought and a lot of kind of tracking, and you can do a lot of stuff around it in terms of, how is it going to help us move forward, and get better over years and stuff like that. So there's more to it than just the purely hours and days ratio. It's the skills and the focus of the business and the kind of work you're taking on and all that sort of stuff. So, but as I said, lots of conversations with clients, and it's become a really big thing. So I would say that's all I want to go through on resourcing for now.
Yep.
Should have said at the start, we do have time where you said Q&A is open, but we will have time at the end for any questions if anyone has on any of these topics.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's move forward. So the next one is increasingly complex builds. So what we saw when we first started putting Verto in is it got bigger and bigger and bigger. We started with those 3 stages, and then ultimately when people are thinking about buying a PPM system, in their heads they've got stages, and they've got everything progresses from left to right, and we're going through all these stages. They all need to be built in. We might have multiple stages for different types of projects, multiple stages for programs, and even portfolios. And we've built, some of our sites have had 30 odd stages. It's become quite a lot. And then a few years ago we saw a trend away from that. And people were going, well, actually, it's enough for us just to centralize all this data. We're trying to move people away from siloed working, and it's kind of a big ask to do that anyway. Instead of working on your machine, on your spreadsheet that you're in control of, we're asking you to work on a centralized system and everyone can see what you're doing. And, there's great sort of use cases for collaboration, but people are naturally a bit nervous about doing that. There's a work in progress. I'm sharing all of that. And there was a sort of trend towards, well, we'll just put everything in one big bucket, all the stuff's there, and we can actually do all the approvals or stuff out of the system, or we can carve it up, with different stages by a drop down or a tag or something like that. But what we are seeing now is a trend back towards putting in more complexity, because I think they're getting more comfortable with the governance element. So, putting a workflow in for approvals, that sits in there, and that is showing more and more of that. But also different teams using the same system in different ways. So we've got quite a few clients where they have multiple areas of that business doing their own thing before they get Verto, and then they're actually saying, well, look, I want to use the system. There's commonality, but I am doing my own thing. So I need my own set of stages to run that. So one department like transformation might run completely different types of projects than IT, but both of them are still in the same system. So that's where the complexity comes in. Although they've got their own areas, what you want to do is as much standardization as possible. So a classic for that is things like tracking risk. So we might have IT, you've got a slightly different way of doing risks than transformation, but can we harmonize that? So across the organization, we can say, well, look, let's do risk like this. So there's commonalities. And one of the push that people are trying to do is go, well, look, if I've got someone that works in transformation, but they want to move to IT, we can move them across the organization and around to different departments, but we're not starting again with how we're doing project management, what we're recording, how we're doing it. So we're using the tool as an opportunity to sort of standardize, figure out best practice and work it. But then you still have, the differences where you need them. So when we say complex, it doesn't mean the system's hard to use. It just means there's thinking to be done about how do we harmonize it and pull this together. So there's a bit more of that going on that we've seen before.
Yeah, it's great, also, I suppose, to reduce silos as well. Really connect the teams a lot more by
we don't just
by
have these different
standardizing
pockets of
terminology.
of different bits of work and different tools and that kind of thing as well. Yeah. And also, even if it's not different teams, what we're seeing is a trend towards sizing of projects, which is coming in a future slide. But in terms of the complexity here, it means that you could sort of run smaller projects through one set of stages and big projects through another set of stages. So, you know, you're not throwing the whole book of project management at each thing. And again, there's a complexity to that. So you might have a big IT project and a small IT project, or a big transformation project and a small one. How do we treat those and all that kind of thing? So I think the key to project management is using the right level for the right kind of project, not going, okay, I've got the kind of process and framework now that I could build a rocket to the moon, and I'm going to throw that at a small project that I'm going to get done in 2 months. You know, it's the quickest way to turn people off this stuff. So I think that's a really important thing. So when we say complexity, it just means more thought is put in because we're trying to do more with the system. But for those that know it, you'll know how configurable it is, and we can absolutely get there, but we just need to make sure that it's adding the value. And they're the conversations that my team will have up front and ongoing, essentially, because we can add these things in as we go. It's a great win for us when we've got one or two departments in an organization and they get in touch saying, right, everyone's seen what we're doing and we're expanding. Another team wants to get it, another department wants to add it, and then, you know, we can engage and add those new people to the system. So we're always really keen to do that. So that's what we're seeing on the build front. So prioritization, we talked about that just a little bit a minute ago. So this is essentially, you know, it's a fairly obvious thing that everyone's in now, which is we've got, you know, budget limitations, we've got people limitations, you know, we've really got to do the right things. And how do we figure out what those right things are? We see it a lot with lots of good project ideas and everything's worthy and a good reason to do it, but we can't do all of them. You might have 10 projects where you think these are all brilliant, but we've only got the money or the time for 6. How do we work that out? And the tools that we have in the system work for that. We've essentially, the first and obvious way to do it is the prioritization matrix that we have, which is just a series of questions. And you say, well, based on these questions, it'll have a score, and the ones that score the highest are the ones that we do. And they can be things like, you know, does it align to our strategic objectives? How much money is it? How impactful is it going to be? Do we have like externally imposed deadlines? Is there a political profile to it? Do we just have to do it? You know, it's part of our core thing. We don't have the choice, you know, but you can decide those questions, you can decide those answers, and you can put it together. And it might be that you end up doing a few quick ones, which is going to produce more results than 1 or 2 massive ones, or it might be the other way around. You can figure that out. But if you pull all this stuff together, you're basing your decisions on data rather than gut feel. And if you tie this together with resourcing, you might be like, okay, this is how much money we've got. This is the staffing we've got. This is what we can reliably achieve based on that. It's not always as simple as going, well, this feels like a better idea than that one. Let's figure it out. So I think what we're seeing more and more is people have a lot of decisions to make. They've got to work quickly and they want the data to do that. And if we can provide that, then that's perfect. So that's kind of the point here. So we can track ideas for new projects. They can all be pulled through the system. But then once they're in the system and we're deciding whether to go ahead and even spend the time putting the business case together, which can be a timely process of which ones do we want to progress, which ones do we want to move forward, and all of that, all that's built into the system as well. So that's a key thing that we're seeing there is like, how can you help us figure out what we should be doing? We can't do everything. And also, there's projects that are running that you might think this isn't doing what it's meant to do anymore, or we've realized as many benefits as we can. Perhaps it's time to cull that and move the resourcing around. It's not just new things, it's everything. And again, if you've got siloed work in projects in different systems or bits of stuff all over the place, it's really hard to make those decisions. If you've got it all in the same place, you can say, right, let's just look at the whole landscape and go, what can we do? Where can we put the right people for the right things? So that's a key thing that's coming through on prioritization.
And this one's really positive, I think. You know, it's, you know, once you've got everything built into the one system, to go through and regularly score your projects and make sure, you know, regularly as you start them, but also, like you say, throughout the project cycle as well.
Yeah.
To just regularly be able to do that will give you so much valuable data and so much insight as to how impactful are they going to be at the end. And it's just a simple change that a simple habit that you can build in. that's going to make an enormous amount of difference. So I'm really, it's great to see that this one is so, it is becoming so frequent with our clients at the moment.
Absolutely. I think that is a key point, is you don't just score at the start and away you go. You consistently review what you're doing and making sure things are right, and just not being afraid to take a step back. And sometimes when everyone's busy, you just keep doing the work. And sometimes you've got to say, right, hang on, what are we doing? Are we doing the right things? And take that time. And yes, it takes time, but it will save you time later on. And so much of what our clients are looking for is the time saving, and if you don't do it now, it will cost you time later. And that's a key thing that keeps coming through with all of these, actually, is like, okay, time and money is just a huge factor for everyone at the moment. So if we can use quality data to make proper decisions, and we can back that up with what we're capturing, it's a stronger place to be, I think. You're in your best place to make those decisions.
Lovely.
Okay, moving forward, change management. So we've always banged on about change management, for want of a better phrase. People have always been surprised to hear me say it doesn't matter how good the system is, it's not going to work if you don't have change management. They'd expect me to stand there and go, the system's going to change everything. It's going to, it's so good, you put it in, everything's going to be perfect. But for anyone who's implemented a system, using different systems, what the system's there to do, why it's there to do it, and bringing all the people with you is absolutely key. And change management isn't something you do for 3 months or 2 months when you're putting the system in. It's a thing that has to sit alongside the system the entire time you're running it, in my view. So it's very, very important at the start. So why are we bringing the system in? How does it affect your job? Why are we asking you to do it? What does it help us as an organization do? All those different questions. And we can see on there, focusing on people and place, it's like the people are the key thing. If everyone's using the system as designed and they like it and it's working, you'll get all of the benefits the system is there to provide. But if people are like, I don't really know what I'm supposed to do with this, I'm not sure why I'm doing it, I'd rather just carry on with my spreadsheet, I'll just carry on with my spreadsheet, it's not going to work, so you need to pull those people with you. You can see the champions drive adoption. We've talked before about having a team that is working with the system, and other teams look in and go, okay, I can see those benefits, I want to move forward. But you can do that with individuals as well. There might just be one person that says, it actually used to take me best part of half a day to do my highlight report, I can now do it in 10 minutes. Those are the sort of advantages, and the people that can go out and explain why that's faster. Reporting used to take me 2 days to collate this stuff, now I've click of a button. You do need people internally to say this is why it's good and what we're doing. And teaching the why is just a key thing for motivating anybody, I would say. Most people are curious, they want to know what the changes are for, why it's better, and if you take the time to educate, people will be like, okay, I get it, I see what the problem was before, I know how this is going to help, and I know my role in making that happen. And I think that's a key part of it. You're trying to bring people with you. You're not just dictating, saying there's a new system, use it, that's it. There's online training or whatever. It's explaining the why helps people come along on the journey with you. So I think that's a key part of it. So I think a lot of that happens when you first implement the system, but good management and ongoing management, the system's going to change anyway, because different needs change, the processes change, and the people will change. All those people that you implemented and trained, and even if it's all perfect in the first year, you'll have a bunch of turnover, different people coming in, and they need the same benefit of why we're doing it and what's going on anyway. And as the things change, you bringing them in to say, well, this is why we're making a change. But the best way to find out what that change is to get feedback from those users. If they're like, this bit just isn't working for us, it doesn't help us out, or this, we would really like something that helps us with this, you're keeping that conversation going. So you're showing that you care about their work, you care about their productivity, and this is going to help them get there. And if you keep that open dialogue there, everything just gets better, I think. And that's what we endeavor to do with our clients as it is. We haven't sat on our laurels and gone, there's a system, it does loads, crack on. Well, what do you need next? What's going to help next? And how do we make it work? And it's the same kind of knock-on effect there, is if people feel part of the conversation, they're going to come to you if there's a problem, you can help solve the problem, but they'll also help you with ideas. That's the secondary and more positive one. Oh, I've been thinking about it. If we could just put this thing in over here, it would save me having to run the spreadsheet over there, or, we could save a bit of time on reporting. And as I said before, we don't know those answers because we're not on the ground doing it. But if we get that from the clients, it works. But also internally, you might not know what someone a couple of rungs down is absolutely doing, but it's the back to the floor concept, isn't it? You figure out those small efficiencies, they'll drive up across the business. So change management's a huge thing for us, and it's bigger than ever in terms of conversations. It's part of every demo we're having, and it's a question that we ask. We push it. We go, okay, the system's great. What are you going to do about change management? And sometimes people are like, oh, I haven't really thought about it. But that's key. We're honest about the challenge for doing this kind of stuff, and we need people to be thinking about it, and we'll guide them with it as well. We've got the team that will help get in there and make this change happen. Work alongside. Hopefully, they've got people internally. If they don't, we'll take it on and we'll support. So it's a strong focus for change management for last year and certainly going into this year. So
yeah, definitely. Simon, you may recall we did a podcast earlier on last year all about understanding the why and teaching the why and making sure that all the people in the organisation know and understand the why. So if anybody wants to go back and listen to that, I think it was an April podcast, but it's one of the P3M playbook podcasts that we did last year. So do go and have a listen to that, because we talk about this in great detail. The other thing to mention is that we've just recorded another podcast for this month, which will be out in next week. And that focuses a lot on people and culture and leading with this in the trifecta of people, process, technology. So there's something to come out, and I look forward to it. I hate to ask
this and sound like a DJ doing a link, but hi Laura, how can people find those podcasts? Where should they be listening?
Thanks, Simon. Glad you asked. Well,
yeah, you just definitely not rehearsed.
If you just head to the events and webinar page on our website, you'll find all previous episodes of these webinars, all of our podcasts, and actually also spotlight sessions, which are run by your team. So really delving into particular features and functionality on the platform as well. And you can filter by what type of content you want to see. So it's very easy to find. So head there.
Yeah. Good stuff. Okay.
Thanks for that.
There we go. Smooth.
All right. Okay. Moving on to reporting.
Okay, so the last one we're to talk about is reporting complexities. I said at the start, this never goes away, because it doesn't. Reporting is such a key thing. Like what we're doing with systems, or even before you've got systems, you're creating data all the time. We've got hundreds of tasks, we've got hundreds of risks, we've got issues, we've got all the cost data, all the benefits data, and different people want to look at it in different ways. We've talked quite a bit about making data-driven decisions, and the demand has never really changed. Faster, clearer management information. I need to know what's going on, and I need it now. It comes up so often with our users, where they're like, oh, my boss has just said I need a report. They need it for a board meeting this afternoon. I need to look at all of this stuff done this way. How do I get that out? So when we started Verto back in the day, we would build a report for you, that we put it in the system, and you can run it as often as you want, and the data's what data's in it is what you get. And we've seen a massive trend over the year to, okay, but I just need this extra column, or I need to filter that out, or I need to add this in, or I need to do it, carve it up a different way. So over the years, we tried to make it as flexible as possible. And where we've got to now is the sort of the dashboards that are live, in real-time reporting, and the design is you take those into the board meeting with you. So rather than a printout that says, here's what you asked for, oh, well, why is that red? Oh, I can't tell you, I'd have to go away and find that out. You can click on it, you've got the information, so you can actually use those live in the sessions. And we are seeing a bit more of a trend towards that. There will always be people printing stuff out. It's the first question whenever you show anything. That's brilliant. How do I print it? At least people aren't physically printing it as much anymore, but at least they might be printing it to PDF and firing those about. But what we're trying to do is make sure that you can access those different bits of data as much as you want to. So exporting those dashboards was huge. That was a big challenge that we couldn't do more than a year ago. So yeah, all the data there was live, but how do we take that out and people can then start to present it in different forums? And that was a huge thing that we cracked, essentially being able to put it straight into PowerPoint, different image packs, or whatever you want to do for that. So that's really helped. And we've got O data on there, which is sort of technical, but all it means is you can point any other tool at your Verto data and get that information in real time. So you're not reliant on us to write reports. You can write your own, you can do your own thing. So these are all sort of trends towards it. And one of the big things that we're putting in this year, which most people don't know yet, but you get some inside information for attending these webinars, is we are bringing in inside Verto Power BI reporting. You don't need an extra license, and you'll be able to sort of run that report, tweak it, edit it, and do whatever you want directly there in the system, which is a huge thing. People have been asking, trending towards this for years, but it's a big thing that, we've been looking at trying to do for ages. There was always bits of reasons why we couldn't get there and different things, but, we're doing final testing now and it looks amazing. So all of the things that we've just talked about still exist. You can still have the printouts that we build for me. You've still got your dashboards, you've still got OTADA, but you've got an extra string to the bow now in terms of you can actually build all those reports directly into the system. So that last one of getting more value faster is absolutely there. So what Verto does in its core is make sure you've got good data to work with. As we spoke about earlier, you've got the consistency of what you're recording. Everyone's doing things in the same way, so you can compare stuff across the business. And even just using a system means you don't have issues with the wrong dates or drop downs that don't match or any of that sort of stuff. It's all well contained in a good data set. But then we've got all these things that sit on top of it that give you that ability to turn it into reporting that actually helps you make decisions and shows you what's going on, and you can be as agile as you want to. So our dream with all of this is not looking back and saying, why did we fail with that project? It's fixing it in real time, making sure you don't fail and all that kind of thing. So there's so much you can do with this stuff now. So every time we ask the clients, what do you want? This comes up, more reporting, more reporting, more reporting. It's always going to be on here as a trend because it's never going away. No one's going to do project management without that. But what we're trying to do year on year is add more tools and more ways of doing it. And yeah, we're really excited to launch that. So keep an eye on these channels for what's going to be there. We'll certainly be running spotlight sessions on the functionality there and showing you what you can achieve with it. So yeah, that's what we're going to go through on those.
Yeah, brilliant. So, yeah, I think the Power BI is going to be a game changer for so many people. To not have to have a license and still be able to report in that way is phenomenal. And yeah, we had a little demo this last week, didn't we, as a company, and it was fabulous, amazing.
The quick edits and just going, well, that's great, but I just want to add this, or I just want to change this, or can you just give me that? Being able to do that in real time is absolutely huge. And yeah, so really happy with that coming through.
Yeah. Yes, looking forward to talking about that more. Right, so those are the big trends for 2026. Thank you so much, Simon. That was really great. I hope it was interesting for everybody out there. I hope that some of it's really resonating with you guys as well, and maybe you're even already seeing a few behaviours in these areas within your own organisations. It'd be great to find out. Now we have got a few minutes left for a Q&A, and I can see we have one question from Neil already about the prioritization trends that you spoke of, Simon. Neil asks, is there a pre-built prioritization matrix in the tool already? This is something on our roadmap for implementation.
It's not pre-built in the sense that there aren't questions and answers that are there, because they're always unique to each organization, but it's pre-built in the sense that the functionality exists. So we can give you an example of what we might run for you to help you with your thinking, top 10 questions that people have, for example. But in terms of what it means for you, yeah, we'd be looking for you guys to put your own questions and your own scoring together. And then the key to that is weighting, so certain questions will hold more sway than others, or certain answers to certain questions as well. So it's not a difficult thing to set up. It's just a lookup table that you can build. You can have different ones in different stages. And as Laura said earlier, you can have them throughout the process as well. So if you get in touch with us, we can give you some examples to help you get started on those. And we can build one for you if you want to, but it's going to work best if it's your questions, your answers.
Fabulous. I hope that answers that okay. So something that we are often asked, Simon, is about resourcing. You obviously talked about it becoming a critical capability rather than sort of nice to have. What is the best place for organisations to start if they've never properly embedded resourcing into their P3M approach before?
I think, as I was saying earlier, I think start small and build it up gently. Make sure that, again, with the change management, people know why you're doing it. So again, it kind of touches on this other elements we talked about with timesheets, where you're not introducing it to sort of track people and worry about their workload or in a negative sense. You're just trying to say, well, look, and we've done this internally when people are saying, look, we're really busy. What this helps you prove is how busy you are and what you're busy with. And if you're busy on the right things, fair enough, you're doing what you're meant to do. But if you realize you're busy on the wrong things or the stuff that you can move around, or it proves you need more resource, that can be a really positive case for resourcing. So I'd say an early thing is figure out why you're doing it, and what you want to do with it, and start with smaller teams, and rather than big bang. Or start with a few key projects that you need to keep an eye on, and learn it and understand it before trying to push it out a bit wider. And as I said, be mindful of things like timesheeting and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I don't think they're negative, but the messaging around it has to be right, because it can stress people out. And I think that's a key thing. You've got to think about the people you're asking to do the job and what it means to them. So I think have a clear sort of goal, like with implementing anything, like what are we trying to do here? Set the guardrails about how far you want to go with it, and then just prove it as you go. And I think you can just do it purely on role, so how many project managers have we got, how many business analysts have we got, but it really comes into its own when you start building skills into there. But also you don't want to overcomplicate it either out of the box, well, they've got this skill and they've got this level of the skill and they can do this and they're based here, and it's what's going to help you, so if you have an existing problem with resourcing, let's try and solve it, because if you can prove you've solved the problem, you're showing positivity and you can bring the organization with you. So doing it for doing its sake, you'll get somewhere, but trying to solve a problem with it will really help out, I think.
Yeah. And you mentioned that there's some more functionality coming out this year on resourcing, or there's still a bit of work to do, or?
Yeah, there's just updates, because like every part of Verto, the more people that use it, the more it would be good ifs we get. It's
feedback,
another bit of the system we use internally. So if there are things that we would like, to build in, we're asking for stuff as well. So we're actually getting quite a lot of feedback from the user base and internally on, can we have this and this setting, and extra little bits just to make it that little bit easier. So the more a bit of functionality is in use, or the wider it's in use across the different clients, the more feedback we get, the more that it gets on the dev roadmap, and the more things that come through it. So there's not a huge thing that's going to revolutionize what's there. Like we've done that, and that came in the last couple of years. But there will be lots of little tweaks that just help it be better and quicker and smoother. And one thing we are focusing on is reporting for that specifically as well, because we've been kind of waiting to see what kind of things people want to report on. And this is going to help us get there. Like the data's been tracked well, but beyond things like the heat maps, what kind of reports are people going to want? So that's all part of it as well. So it's it's going to be in like almost every quarter release. We're going to have a little bit of resourcing in there, and it's just because it's such a big thing for our clients at the moment.
Neil has got back, and just to based on his other question, he's just mentioned that they have got their own questions and logic already for
perfect
prioritization. It's just virtualizing it. I love that. It's virtualizing.
Yeah, we like making up words on this one. It's a really quick job. If they're quite a lot of questions, we can actually preload them for you. But yeah, we can build it on your test site. It's probably half an hour's job, so it's not a big thing. So I'd just suggest, get in touch with the team. We'll get it built for you, and then you can start having a play with it on test and see what comes through into live.
Brilliant. Right, well, today's webinar was only ever 45 minutes, and we're coming up to that time now. So I just want to say that is all from us today. Thank you, Simon.
Welcome.
And thank you. Yes, thank you so much again. And no doubt you'll be joining me again for another one very soon. I just want to say thank you so much to everybody here who has joined today's session. We also hope to see you again. So I will get the details of February's webinar out as soon as possible, and probably March as well. So, but in the meantime, do check out our website and do join us on LinkedIn as soon as possible, and all of the information will be there. So thank you again for being here, and goodbye.
Thanks all. Goodbye.